The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas, their faces showing worry and fear. At the center of the massive room, a holographic display showed something that made even the bravest warriors feel cold inside. It was a weapon. Ancient, massive, and deadly. The construct stretched for kilometers in every direction, its dark metal surface covered in symbols that no living being could read. It drifted through space like a sleeping giant, moving slowly but steadily toward the galaxy's core systems. Ambassador Thek of the Zentorians stood at the speaker's platform. His blue skin looked pale under the chamber's lights. "The situation is clear," he said, his voice echoing through the room. "This weapon will reach the central black hole in 47 standard days. When it does, our scientists calculate it will cause the black hole to become unstable." A shiver ran through the crowd. Everyone knew what that meant. If the galaxy's central black hole became unstable, it would destroy everything within 1,000 light-years. Billions of worlds, trillions of lives. "We have tried to communicate with the construct," Thek continued. "It does not respond. We have tried to change its course with tractor beams. Our strongest ships could not move it even slightly. We have one choice left. Someone must board it and shut it down from the inside." General Korex of the Corvan Empire slammed his armored fist on his chair's armrest. "Then we fight it. My warriors will tear it apart piece by piece." "Your warriors tried," Thek replied sadly. He waved his hand and the hologram changed. Now it showed a recording of space combat. Corvan warships, the most feared fighting force in the galaxy, attacked the construct with everything they had. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and energy weapons struck its surface. The construct did not even slow down. Then something terrible happened. The construct's defenses came alive. Beams of pure energy lashed out, cutting through the Corvan ships like they were made of paper. In less than 10 minutes, the entire fleet was destroyed. Not one ship escaped. "The Corvan assault failed," Thek said, "as did our attempts. The Ethereals sent their most advanced vessels. The Vorthak used weapons older than some stars. Every species has tried. All have failed." The chamber fell silent. On the display, the construct continued its slow journey toward the galaxy's heart. "There is worse news," Thek continued. "The construct is protected by an energy field. Any living creature that comes within 1,000 kilometers dies instantly. We do not understand how or why, but every scan shows the same result. The field kills any form of life we know." High Counselor Vex of the Ethereals spoke next. Her voice sounded like music, but her words were cold. "We sent remote probes as close as possible. The energy readings are beyond anything we have seen. The field appears to target neural systems directly. Death is immediate." "Our scientists studied the recordings," added Elder Zoth of the Vorthak. His ancient voice creaked like old wood. "The weapon was built by the predecessors, the race that existed before any of us achieved spaceflight. Their technology is far beyond our understanding." More holographic images appeared. They showed the failed attempts by every major species. The Zentorians had tried using artificial intelligence to control their ships remotely, but the AI systems failed when they got close to the construct. The Ethereals had attempted to use their most advanced shielding technology, but the energy field cut through it like it was not there. The Vorthak had even tried using ancient artifacts from their homeworld, weapons that had once destroyed entire solar systems. Nothing worked. "The conclusion is obvious," Thek said. "The mission is impossible. We must begin immediate evacuation of all core systems. It will take years to move everyone, but we have no choice." Voices rose throughout the chamber. Representatives began arguing about evacuation routes, refugee settlements, and resource allocation. The noise grew louder and more desperate. Then a clear voice cut through the chaos. "We'll handle it." The chamber went quiet. Everyone turned to look at the small section reserved for the newest members of the Galactic Council. There sat Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Human Federation. She was young by galactic standards, representing a species that had only been in space for a little over a century. Thek blinked his large eyes. "I am sorry, Ambassador Chen. Did you say something?" Sarah stood up. She was small compared to most of the other representatives, but she looked calm and determined. "I said we'll handle it. Humanity will take the mission." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives laughed. Others made sounds of disbelief. A few looked concerned. General Korex was the first to speak clearly. "Human, My greatest warriors could not survive 5 minutes against that thing. Your species barely has faster than light travel. What makes you think you can succeed where we failed? Sarah smiled, and there was something in that smile that made some of the other representatives feel uneasy. Because we don't know when to quit. This is madness, High Counselor Vex said. Her musical voice sounded sharp. Your species will be extinct within days. The energy field will kill you before you can even get close. Maybe, Sarah replied, but we have to try. That construct is going to kill trillions of people. We can't just run away. Elder Zoth leaned forward in his ancient chair. Young human, your courage is admirable but pointless. We have tested every possible approach. The mission cannot be completed. You tested every approach you could think of, Sarah said, but you haven't tried the human approach. And what approach is that? Thek asked. Sarah's smile grew wider. We're going to get close enough to touch it, board it, and turn it off. Simple. The chamber exploded in noise again. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other. Some called the humans crazy. Others said they were too young and stupid to understand the danger. A few wondered if the humans had some secret technology they had not shared. Thek raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. Ambassador Chen, he said carefully, the energy field will kill your people instantly. This is not theory. It is fact. Facts can change, Sarah replied. Maybe the field affects humans differently. Maybe we can find a way to shield against it. Maybe we can adapt. We won't know until we try. This is suicide, General Korex growled. Probably, Sarah agreed. But if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. At least this way there's a chance. The chamber fell silent again. The holographic display still showed the construct, drifting through space toward its deadly destination. 46 days, 18 hours, and 37 minutes remained. Finally, Thek spoke. If humanity wishes to attempt this mission, the Council will not stop you. But we will not provide assistance either. The risk to our own people is too great. We understand, Sarah said. We'll handle it ourselves. As the council session ended and representatives began to file out, many of them looked back at the small human delegation. Some shook their heads in pity. Others whispered about human foolishness. But a few, particularly the older and wiser representatives, looked thoughtful. They had lived long enough to see many impossible things become possible, and there was something in the way the humans carried themselves, something that suggested they meant exactly what they said. In the empty chamber, the holographic construct continued its journey toward the heart of the galaxy. The countdown timer showed 46 days, 18 hours, and 36 minutes. Time was running out. The message traveled across human space faster than anything had ever moved before. Every ship, every station, every colony received the same transmission. Ambassador Sarah Chen's face appeared on screens throughout human territory, her expression serious but determined. Citizens of the Human Federation, she began, we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. A weapon from an ancient civilization threatens to destroy the galaxy's core. Every other species has tried to stop it and failed. Now it falls to us. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. I won't lie to you. This mission will likely mean death for everyone who volunteers. The weapon is protected by an energy field that has killed every living thing that has tried to approach it. But we have to try. If we don't, trillions of innocent beings will die. Commander Marcus Rodriguez was in his small apartment on Luna Station when he saw the transmission. He had been retired from the Space Navy for 3 years, spending his time fixing old ships and trying to forget the friends he had lost in the border wars. But when Sarah Chen finished speaking and put out the call for volunteers, Marcus didn't hesitate. He sent his response within minutes. 2 days later, he stood in a crowded meeting room on Earth, looking at the strangest group of people he had ever seen assembled for a military mission. There was Dr. Elena Vasquez, a neuroscientist who had spent her career studying how human brains worked differently from other species. Beside her sat Tommy Sullivan, a deep space mining engineer who had spent 20 years working in the most dangerous conditions in human space. Captain Lisa Park had flown rescue missions in asteroid fields where one mistake meant death. Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison was a weapons specialist who could make a bomb out of spare parts and good intentions. Dr. James Wright was a xenoarchaeologist who had studied predecessor technology longer than anyone else alive, and there were dozens more. Ship engineers, medical officers, computer specialists, and soldiers, all volunteers, all willing to die for people they had never met. Marcus stood at the front of the room. "I'll be honest with you," he said. "This mission has a survival rate of 0% based on everything we know. The construct's energy field kills anything that gets close to it. The defenses have destroyed every fleet that's tried to attack it. And we're going in with one ship and a crew of volunteers." Someone in the back of the room laughed. "Sounds like a normal Tuesday to me, Commander." More laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus smiled despite himself. This was why he loved working with humans. Other species would spend weeks calculating odds and running simulations. Humans just asked, "What do we need to do?" Dr. Vasquez stood up. "I've been studying the energy field data that the other species shared with us. They're right that it kills every form of life they've tested, but there's something interesting in the neural scan patterns." She activated a holographic display that showed brain scans from different species. "Look at these patterns. When Zentorian, Corvin, Ethereal, or Vorthak brains are exposed to the field energy, they shut down completely. But human brains are different. We process information differently than other species." The display changed to show a human brain scan. "Our neural pathways are more flexible. We adapt faster to new situations. It's possible, just possible, that we might survive the energy field long enough to get close to the construct." "Might survive," Tommy Sullivan said. "I like those odds better than definitely die immediately." "There's more," Dr. Wright added. He stood and pointed to another holographic display. "I've been studying what we know about predecessor technology. They were the most advanced species that ever existed, but they disappeared millions of years ago. Every piece of their technology we found has been a test of some kind." The image showed ancient artifacts that had been discovered across the galaxy. "The pattern is always the same. The technology appears dangerous or impossible to use, but it's actually testing for specific qualities: courage, intelligence, creativity, and something else." "What's something else?" Marcus asked. "The willingness to sacrifice yourself for others," Dr. Wright replied. "Every successful interaction with predecessor technology has required someone to risk everything for the greater good." The room fell quiet as people thought about this. Finally, Captain Park spoke up. "So you're saying this construct might not be a weapon at all?" "I'm saying it might be the ultimate test," Dr. Wright answered. "And maybe we're the first species crazy enough to pass it." Over the next weeks, human shipyards worked around the clock. They took an old cargo hauler called the Persistence and began modifying it for the mission. The ship wasn't fast or pretty, but it was tough. Human engineers had built it to survive anything space could throw at it. They added shielding made from materials salvaged from crashed alien ships. The weapons systems came from 6 different species, jury-rigged together with human ingenuity and hope. The life support systems were upgraded to handle extreme conditions, including possible exposure to deadly energy fields. Tommy Sullivan spent days working on the ship's mining equipment, turning industrial tools into improvised weapons. "If we can't shoot our way through," he said, "maybe we can dig our way through." Dr. Vasquez set up a medical bay that looked more like a mad scientist's laboratory. She had stimulants to keep people conscious, painkillers to manage agony, and experimental treatments for neural damage. "I can't promise any of this will work," she told Marcus, "but it's better than nothing." Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy watched with a mixture of fascination and horror. Zentorian news broadcasts called it the most illogical decision in recorded history. Corvin military analysts predicted the humans would be dead within hours of reaching the construct. Ethereal philosophers debated whether such reckless bravery was admirable or simply insane. But a few representatives from other species quietly sent messages of support. They didn't think the humans would succeed, but they respected the attempt. General Corax himself sent a personal message to Marcus. "You fight with honor, human. May your ancestors welcome you with pride." As the launch date approached, more volunteers kept arriving. The Persistence was designed for a crew of 30, but over 100 humans had requested to join the mission. Marcus had to make the hardest decision of his career, choosing who would have the honor of almost certain death. The night before launch, the crew gathered in the ship's common area. They shared stories, jokes, and hopes for families they might never see again. Nobody talked about failure. Nobody expressed doubt. They were humans, and humans had never met an impossible situation they wouldn't try to solve. Dr. Vasquez raised a cup of coffee. the traditional human drink for dangerous situations. "To the impossible mission," she said. "To the impossible mission," the crew replied. Outside the ship, Earth's night sky was full of stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient weapon continued its journey toward the galaxy's heart. The construct had destroyed every force sent against it, and its energy field had killed everything that tried to get close. But it had never faced humans before. The Persistence launched at dawn, Earth time. As it left the solar system and jumped to hyperspace, Sarah Chen watched from the council chambers. She had done everything she could. Now it was up to Marcus and his crew to do what every other species said was impossible. The ship disappeared into the void between stars, carrying humanity's hopes and the galaxy's last chance for survival. Behind them, the countdown continued. 38 days remained. The Persistence dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the danger zone, and every person on the bridge fell silent. Through the main view screen, they could see the construct for the first time with their own eyes. It was massive. The ancient weapon stretched across space like a dark mountain, its surface covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move when nobody was looking directly at them. Strange lights pulsed along its edges in patterns that made human eyes water and human minds feel dizzy. "Sensor readings coming in," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the science station. "The construct is exactly where the council said it would be. Energy field extends in all directions for 1,200 kilometers. Commander Rodriguez stood behind the captain's chair, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They all knew they were looking at their deaths, but nobody showed fear. "Distance to the energy field?" Marcus asked. 5,000 kilometers in closing," replied Captain Park from the pilot's seat. "We're still in normal space. Whatever that thing does to living creatures, we haven't felt it yet." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her medical readings. "All crew members are showing elevated stress levels, but that's normal for this situation. Brain patterns are stable. We're as ready as we can be." Marcus nodded and activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the commander. We are approaching the construct's energy field. Based on what happened to other species, we expect to experience severe physical and mental distress once we enter the field. Dr. Vasquez will monitor everyone's condition and provide medical support as needed." He paused, looking around at his crew. "Remember, we're not just doing this for humanity. We're doing this for every living being in the galaxy. Stay focused, help each other, and let's show the universe what humans can do." The ship continued moving forward. On screens throughout the galaxy, representatives from dozens of species watched the impossible attempt. The Zentorians had calculated that the humans would die within seconds of entering the field. Corvan warriors placed bets on how long the ship would last. Even the ancient Vorthak watched with interest, curious to see how this young species would face extinction. 4,000 kilometers, Captain Park reported. 3,000. 2,000. At 1,500 kilometers from the construct, the ship's sensors began picking up strange readings. Energy patterns unlike anything in known science swirled around the ancient weapon. The very fabric of space seemed to bend and twist near its surface. 1,500 kilometers, Park said, her voice steady. 1,400. 1,300. Tommy Sullivan was monitoring the ship's systems when the first effects hit. "Commander, I'm getting weird readings from the engines. Power fluctuations across all systems." 1,200 kilometers, Park announced. "We are now entering the energy field." For a moment, nothing happened. The humans held their breath, waiting for death to strike them down as it had struck down every other living creature that had tried this approach. Then the pain began. It started as a headache, like someone was driving needles through their skulls. Within seconds, it became agony beyond description. Several crew members cried out and fell from their chairs. Others gripped their stations so hard their knuckles turned white. Neural activity spiking across the board. Dr. Vasquez shouted over the sound of people in pain. "But we're still alive. We're still conscious." Lieutenant Kim was the first to recover enough to speak clearly. Blood ran from her nose, but she stayed at her station. "Commander, this is incredible. The energy is affecting us, but not like it affected the other species. Our brain patterns are changing, but they're not shutting down." Marcus wiped blood from his eyes and looked at the view screen. The construct was closer now, its dark surface filling their view. "Distance to target?" 800 kilometers, Park gasped. She was still piloting the ship despite the pain that made her vision blur and her hands shake. 700. We're still moving forward. Throughout the ship, humans fought against agony that would have killed members of other species instantly. They took stimulants to stay conscious, used meditation techniques to focus through the pain, and relied on sheer stubborn determination to keep working. Dr. Wright was studying his instruments when he made a shocking discovery. "Commander, the energy field is testing us. I can see it now. It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to see if we can adapt." "Adapt to what?" Marcus asked. "To pain, to fear, to facing death without giving up." Wright's voice was filled with wonder despite his suffering. "The predecessors built this as a test. Every other species failed because they couldn't handle the physical and mental stress. But humans are different. We adapt. We endure." The ship's defenses suddenly came alive as they passed the 600-kilometer mark. Energy beams lashed out from the construct, striking the Persistence with enough force to destroy a battleship. The human vessel shuddered and sparked, but it held together. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Sullivan reported. "Emergency shields holding. Weapons systems online. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. The Persistence was not a warship, but its crew had turned it into one. Mining lasers, improvised missiles, and jury-rigged energy weapons struck the construct's surface. They did no visible damage, but they sent a clear message. The humans were not backing down. More defensive systems activated. Swarms of automated drones poured out of hidden bays in the construct's surface, moving to intercept the human ship. Each drone was the size of a fighter craft and armed with weapons that could cut through the strongest known armor. "Evasive maneuvers," Marcus commanded. Captain Park pushed the ship through impossible turns and twists, using her experience flying in asteroid fields to avoid the drone attacks. But there were too many enemies and only one human ship. "We're taking heavy damage," Sullivan shouted. "Life support failing on decks 2 and 4. Main engines at 60% power." The drones swarmed around the Persistence like angry insects. Their weapons struck again and again, tearing holes in the ship's hull and destroying system after system. Any normal crew would have surrendered or retreated, but the humans kept fighting. Chief Morrison turned the ship's industrial equipment into weapons, firing mining charges at the drones and using magnetic grapples to pull enemies into the ship's path. Dr. Vasquez left the medical bay to help repair damaged systems, working with her hands while her head pounded from the energy field's effects. 300 kilometers to the construct, Park announced. 250. 200. More defensive systems came online. The construct's surface opened to reveal massive energy cannons that fired beams of pure destruction. The first shot missed the Persistence by meters, but the second struck the ship directly. The explosion tore through the vessel's center section. Half the crew died instantly. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship as atmosphere leaked into space and systems failed one by one. But the survivors kept going. "Hull integrity at 15%, Sullivan reported, blood running down his face from a head wound. "We've lost main power. Running on emergency systems only." Marcus looked around the bridge. More than half his crew was dead or unconscious. The ship was dying around them. Through the view screen, the construct loomed larger than a mountain, its weapons charging for another killing shot. "Distance to target?" he asked. 100 kilometers, Park whispered. She was barely conscious, but her hands still worked the controls. 90, 80. The energy field's effects were growing stronger as they got closer. The pain was beyond human endurance, yet the humans endured it. Their neural patterns continued to adapt and change, doing something that no other species' brains could do. 70 kilometers, Park said. 60, 50. The construct's weapons fired again, but this time the shot went wide. The ancient targeting system seemed confused by the human ship's erratic flight path, and the crew's refusal to die when they should have been dead already. 40 kilometers, Park announced. 30, 20. At 15 kilometers, something extraordinary happened. The construct's weapons stopped firing. The swarms of defensive drones pulled back. The energy field continued to cause pain, but it no longer tried to kill the humans. Dr. Wright looked up from his instruments with amazement in his eyes. "Commander, we did it. We passed the test. The construct is allowing us to approach." Marcus felt a moment of hope, but it was quickly crushed when he looked at his damage reports. The ship was too badly damaged to continue. They were close to the construct, but they had no way to board it. Tommy, can we get any closer? He asked. Sullivan shook his head. Engines are gone. Life support is failing. We've got maybe 30 minutes of air left. Marcus looked at the construct through the view screen. They had come so far and sacrificed so much, but they were still kilometers away from their target. The mission was going to fail. Then Captain Park spoke up, her voice weak but determined. Commander, I can ram us into the construct's docking bay. It won't be a soft landing, but it'll get us there. Marcus nodded. Do it. The Persistence began its final approach, diving toward the ancient weapon like a spear thrown by a desperate warrior. Around the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited to see if humanity's impossible mission would end in victory or death. The Persistence crashed into the construct with the force of a small meteor. Metal screamed against metal as the human ship tore through ancient barriers and came to rest in what appeared to be a docking bay designed for vessels 10 times its size. Commander. Rodriguez woke up on the bridge floor, his head ringing and blood in his mouth. Emergency lights flickered red in the smoke-filled air. Around him, the surviving members of his crew were picking themselves up and checking for injuries. Sound off, Marcus called out, his voice hoarse. Park here, came the pilot's voice from somewhere in the wreckage. Alive but not happy about it, Sullivan reporting. Engineering is a mess, but I'm still breathing. One by one, the survivors reported in. Of the original crew of 37, only 12 were still alive and conscious. Dr. Vasquez was treating the wounded with supplies salvaged from the destroyed medical bay. Chief Morrison was trying to get their portable equipment working again. Dr. Wright was studying readings on a cracked display screen. Commander, we're inside the construct. The energy field is much weaker in here, but it's still affecting us. More importantly, I'm detecting massive power sources deeper in the structure. Marcus pulled himself to his feet and looked through the shattered view screen. They were in a chamber so vast that their ship looked like a toy inside it. The walls were covered in the same strange symbols they had seen on the construct's exterior, but here they pulsed with soft light. Can we move deeper into the structure? He asked. The ship's done for, Sullivan replied. But I can get our portable equipment working. We'll have to go on foot. Tommy Sullivan was the best engineer Marcus had ever worked with. He had spent 20 years working in deep space, fixing impossible problems with whatever tools he could find. Now he worked with the focused intensity of someone who knew that millions of lives depended on his success. Within an hour, he had cobbled together working life support systems, portable computers, and basic tools from the wreckage of their ship. It wasn't pretty, but it would keep them alive long enough to complete the mission. Dr. Wright led the way deeper into the construct, following energy readings on his scanner. The passages they walked through were huge, designed for beings much larger than humans. The walls showed signs of incredible age, but the technology still worked perfectly after millions of years. This place is like a tomb, whispered Lieutenant Kim. But also like a test facility. Both, I think, Dr. Wright replied. The predecessors built this to find a species worthy of inheriting their knowledge. Every other race that tried to reach it failed the first test. They walked for what felt like hours through corridors filled with soft, pulsing light. The energy field continued to cause them pain, but it was manageable now. Their brains had adapted in ways that still amazed Dr. Vasquez when she checked their readings. Finally, they reached what was clearly the construct's central chamber. It was enormous, filled with crystalline structures that hummed with power. At the center stood a control system that looked both incredibly advanced and strangely simple. Dr. Wright studied his instruments. This is it, the weapons control center. But Commander, what I'm seeing doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Marcus asked. This isn't just a weapon. It's also a library, a database containing all the knowledge of the predecessors, their science, their history, their understanding of the universe, everything they learned in millions of years of existence. Wright's voice filled with wonder. They didn't build this to destroy the galaxy. They built it to test the galaxy, to find a species that could inherit their legacy. Suddenly the chamber filled with light and a holographic figure appeared in front of them. It was tall and graceful, with features that seemed both alien and somehow familiar. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds. Greetings, humans of Earth. I am the guardian of this facility. You have passed the first test by surviving the approach and reaching this chamber. But the true test begins now. The hologram gestured toward the control system. This construct will indeed destroy the galaxy's core if it is not stopped. But stopping it requires a choice. Someone must remain here to operate the controls manually. The process will take several hours and expose that person to lethal radiation levels. Death is certain. Marcus stepped forward. I'll do it. No, Commander, Tommy Sullivan said, moving past him toward the controls. This is an engineering problem. I'm the best engineer here. It should be me. Tommy, you don't have to, Marcus began. Yes, I do, Sullivan interrupted. We came here to save the galaxy. That means all of us. Not just the pretty worlds with the important people. Every life matters, Commander. Every single one. He grinned, and even facing certain death, he looked happy. Besides, I always wanted to see how predecessor technology really works. This is like getting a tour of the ultimate machine shop. The Guardian nodded approvingly. The choice shows wisdom and courage. But be warned, human engineer. The process will be painful beyond description. The radiation will slowly destroy your body while you work. You will suffer greatly. I've been suffering since we entered that energy field, Sullivan replied. What's a little more pain for a good cause? Before anyone could argue further, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The Guardian's expression turned urgent. The construct's defensive systems have detected multiple approaching fleets. Other species are attempting to destroy the facility before it can reach the galactic core. Through the chamber's walls, they could hear the sound of distant explosions. The Corvan Empire had sent another fleet. The Centaurians were trying to destroy the construct with long-range weapons. Even the ancient Vorthak were attacking with weapons that turned space itself into fire. They don't understand, Dr. Wright said desperately. They think this is just a weapon. They don't know about the test or the knowledge stored here. The Guardian looked sad. If they destroy this facility, all predecessor knowledge will be lost forever. The galaxy will lose its chance to inherit wisdom that could prevent countless future wars and disasters. Marcus activated his communicator, trying to contact the attacking fleets, but the construct's ancient metal blocked most transmissions. Only fragments of messages got through. This is Commander Rodriguez of the Human Federation. Do not attack the construct. Repeat, do not attack. We have a team inside working to shut it down safely. The response that came back was filled with static, but Marcus could make out General Corex's voice. Human ship destroyed. No survivors possible. Destroying weapon before it reaches core. More explosions shook the construct. Sections of the ancient structure began to fail as weapons designed to destroy planets struck its surface. I have to start the shutdown process now, Sullivan said, moving to the control system. If this place gets destroyed before I finish, everyone in the galaxy dies. The Guardian nodded. Place your hands on the control interface. I will guide you through the process, but you must maintain contact at all times. Breaking contact even for a moment will cause the shutdown to fail. Sullivan placed his hands on what looked like smooth crystal. Immediately, his body went rigid as energy flowed through him. His face contorted in pain, but he held on. Phase 1 beginning, the Guardian announced. Time to completion. 3 hours, 17 minutes. Through the construct's walls, they could hear more explosions as the attacking fleets continued their assault. Pieces of debris began falling from the ceiling. Cracks appeared in the crystal structures around them. Commander, Dr. Vasquez said urgently, we need to get out of here. The structure won't survive much more of this bombardment. Marcus looked at Tommy Sullivan, who was locked in place at the controls, his body shaking from pain and radiation exposure. We're not leaving him. You have to, Sullivan gasped. If this place collapses before I finish, the weapon will activate automatically. Go. Get back to the ship and try to call off those fleets. Tommy, Captain Park began. Go. Sullivan shouted. That's an order from your chief engineer. I can't hold on if I'm worrying about you people. Get out of here and let me do my job. Marcus made the hardest decision of his military career. Fall back to the ship. Try to establish communications with the fleets. Everyone except Morrison and Wright. Sir? Chief Morrison asked. Someone needs to guard Tommy's back. If those defensive systems come online again, he'll need protection. Morrison nodded grimly. Understood, Commander. Dr. Wright moved to a nearby console. I'm staying to record everything. If Tommy succeeds, someone needs to make sure the galaxy knows what really happened here. As the rest of the team retreated toward their crashed ship, Tommy Sullivan continued his work at the control system. The radiation was cooking him from the inside out, but he held on with the same stubborn determination that had made him the best engineer in human space. Around him, Chief Morrison set up defensive positions with improvised weapons. Dr. Wright documented everything, making sure that humanity's greatest sacrifice would not be forgotten. Outside, the ancient construct shuddered under the assault of weapons that could crack moons, but deep in its heart, one human engineer fought to save a galaxy that had given up hope. The countdown continued. 2 hours and 43 minutes remained. Tommy Sullivan had been connected to the control system for 2 hours. His body was failing as radiation slowly destroyed his cells, but his hands never moved from the crystal interface. Sweat and blood ran down his face, yet he continued to work with the focused determination that had made him legendary among deep space engineers. Phase 2 complete, the Guardian announced. Beginning Phase 3. Time remaining, 1 hour, 12 minutes. Around them, the ancient construct shuddered as more weapons struck its surface. The attacking fleets had grown larger as more species arrived, all determined to destroy what they saw as a galaxy-ending threat. None of them knew that deep inside the weapon, a human was sacrificing his life to save them all. Chief Morrison crouched behind a makeshift barrier, watching the chamber's entrances with weapons ready. The construct's defensive systems had reactivated as the external attacks intensified, sending waves of automated guardians to protect the control center. Contact front, Morrison called out as sleek metal shapes flowed into the chamber like liquid mercury. The guardians moved with inhuman speed and precision, their weapons designed to cut through any known armor. Morrison opened fire with a weapon, cobbled together from mining equipment and Corvin energy cells. The improvised gun kicked like an angry mule, but it worked. Guardian constructs sparked and fell as human ingenuity met predecessor technology. But there were too many of them. "I can't hold them much longer," Morrison shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "They're trying to get to Tommy." Dr. Wright looked up from his recording equipment. "The shutdown process is at critical stage. If Tommy loses contact now, the weapon will activate immediately instead of waiting to reach the galactic core." More Guardian constructs poured into the chamber. Morrison's improvised weapons were running low on power, and he had already taken several hits that would have killed a member of any other species. But he kept fighting, using broken crystal formations for cover, and turning the chamber's own structure into weapons. "Commander Rodriguez to all attacking fleets," came a crackling voice over the communications system. "Do not destroy the construct. We have a man inside preventing galactic destruction. Repeat, friendly forces inside the target." The response came back in a dozen different languages and communication protocols, but the message was clear. No one believed the humans were still alive. General Corex's voice cut through the chatter. "Human vessel destroyed 2 hours ago. No survivors possible. All forces continue attack." High Counselor Vex of the Ethereals added her musical tone. "Construct will reach point of no return in 47 minutes. Must destroy now while destruction is still possible." Even Elder Zoth of the Ancient Vorthak spoke. "We honor human sacrifice, but cannot risk entire galaxy on impossible hope." The attacks intensified. Weapons that could shatter planets struck the construct's weakening hull. Entire sections of the ancient structure began to collapse as the combined firepower of multiple species tore it apart. In the control chamber, Tommy Sullivan felt his vision start to fade. The radiation had damaged his eyes, his nervous system, and most of his internal organs. By all rights, he should have been dead an hour ago. But he held on through sheer force of will and the stubborn human refusal to quit. "Tommy, your vital signs are failing," Dr. Wright said with quiet desperation. "I don't know how you're still conscious." Sullivan managed a weak grin. "Must be, all that coffee. I drank over the years. Finally, paying off. Even dying, he was making jokes. It was the most human thing Wright had ever witnessed. Phase 3 complete, the Guardian announced. Beginning final phase. Warning. External damage has reached critical levels. Facility collapse imminent. The chamber shook as a massive explosion tore through the construct's upper levels. Cracks appeared in the walls, and pieces of ancient technology began falling from the ceiling. Morrison dove aside as a Guardian construct's energy blast nearly took his head off. "Whatever's going to happen, it better happen fast." Tommy's hands began to shake as the final phase of the shutdown required more precise control than ever before. The radiation had damaged his nervous system to the point where his fingers barely responded to his commands. But somehow, impossibly, he maintained contact with the crystal interface. "Come on, Tommy," he whispered to himself. "You've fixed broken engines and asteroid fields. You've jury-rigged life support systems while pirates were shooting at you. You can do this." The Guardian's voice took on an urgent tone. "Structural collapse accelerating. Recommend immediate evacuation of all personnel." "Not happening," Sullivan gasped. "How much? More time?" 17 minutes, 32 seconds. Another massive explosion shook the facility. This time the ceiling cracked open, showing stars beyond. The attacking fleets were so close now that their weapons were firing directly into the construct's interior spaces. Morrison's position was overrun by Guardian constructs. The chief fought with desperate courage, using his bare hands when his weapons failed. But energy blasts cut through his improvised armor, and he fell beside his makeshift barrier. "Morrison," Dr. Wright called out. "Still. Alive," Morrison wheezed. "But not for long. Tommy, you better finish this thing before I bleed out." The entire facility was coming apart now. Whole sections collapsed as the external bombardment reached devastating intensity. In just minutes there would be nothing left but floating debris. Tommy Sullivan felt his heart stopping. The radiation had finally overwhelmed his body's ability to function, but his hands remained locked on the control interface through sheer determination. "Guardian," he whispered. "If I die, before the shutdown finishes, what happens? The process will fail. The weapon will activate immediately and destroy the galactic core." Tommy closed his eyes and reached deeper into himself than he had ever gone before. Past pain, past exhaustion, past the fear of death. He found something that every human carried inside them, the absolute refusal to let innocent people die while there was still breath in his body. "Then I guess I'm not dying yet." The final minutes stretched like hours. The construct continued to collapse around them. Morrison lost consciousness from blood loss. Dr. Wright kept recording everything, knowing that someone had to tell the galaxy what happened here. And Tommy Sullivan held on. With 30 seconds remaining, his heart stopped completely. But his brain kept functioning just long enough to maintain contact with the controls. With 15 seconds remaining, the ceiling above them gave way completely, exposing the control chamber to space. With 5 seconds remaining, Tommy's hands finally went limp. But it was enough. "Shutdown complete," the Guardian announced. "Weapon deactivated. All systems powering down to safe levels." The ancient construct went dark. Its journey toward the galactic core ended as its engines shut down permanently. The weapon that had threatened trillions of lives became nothing more than a drifting monument to one species' courage and sacrifice. Outside, the attacking fleet suddenly found their sensors showing impossible readings. The construct's energy signature had vanished. Its defensive systems were offline. Whatever had been powering the ancient weapon was gone. General Korex was the first to speak. "All forces, cease fire. The target appears to be neutralized." Rescue ships raced toward the construct's wreckage. They found Commander Rodriguez and the surviving humans in their crashed ship, barely alive but conscious. They found Dr. Wright in the control chamber, still recording, with Morrison unconscious but breathing beside him. And they found Tommy Sullivan, his hand still touching the crystal interface, his face peaceful in death. Dr. Wright looked up at the rescue team with tears in his eyes. He did it. He saved everyone. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The humans had succeeded where every other species had failed. They had stopped the ancient weapon through courage, sacrifice, and an absolutely stubborn refusal to give up. A week later, the Galactic Council held a memorial service that was broadcast to every inhabited world. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from dozens of species. "We didn't succeed because we were smarter or stronger than anyone else," she said simply. "We succeeded because when everyone else saw an impossible mission, We saw people who needed help. She paused, looking directly at the camera that would carry her words to billions of viewers. Tommy Sullivan and the crew of the Persistence remind us that the universe is not a cold, empty place. It's full of people worth saving. And as long as there are humans in this galaxy, we will never stop trying to save them. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to create a new position, Director of Emergency Response. The job would go to the species that had proven they would never abandon a mission that could save lives. Sarah Chen accepted the position on behalf of humanity. Years later, when new threats emerged and other species declared them impossible to handle, there was a saying that spread among the stars. It appeared on military communications, civilian broadcasts, and diplomatic messages throughout the galaxy. When the impossible happened and hope seemed lost, the message was always the same. Call the humans, they'll handle it.